Alzheimer's disease is a serious disease that results in memory loss and a decrease in cognitive functions, primarily in elderly people. This disease generally worsens with age. The heritability of this disease is approximately 60 to 80%, meaning that genetic factors play a major role in whether or not someone will develop this disease. Alzheimer's is quite prevalent in our society, as 1 out of 10 people who are over the age of 65 have the disease.
Because Alzheimer's is so common in our society today, we have decided to create a genetic test that will allow anyone and everyone to find out whether or not their genes have genetic variations that could eventually lead to them developing Alzheimer's. To do this, our customers will send us a small saliva sample so that we can use their DNA to run a series of tests to look for genetic variations known as SNPs that could be dangerous in their genes. Because there are several genetic variations that could possibly lead to the development of Alzheimer's, we are only going to be focusing on and testing the most effective ones that lead to Alzheimer's.
We want to include 7 genetic variations in our genetic test because we want to provide our customers with several possible outcomes regarding Alzheimer's development. Several of the SNPs that our genetic test will be looking for could be found in the genes ABCA2, ATP8B4, and V232M, which are an essential part of protein coding. If they have a specific dangerous gene variant, this can lead to an increased risk of Alzheimer's development and an increase in the chance of coding failure in proteins.
Another type of gene test we are testing for APP has the opposite effect. With a certain genetic variation, APP is known to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's significantly. The job of the AP gene's proteins is to help direct the movement of natural cells throughout the brain.
The 2 most effective genetic variations that lead to an increase in the chance of developing Alzheimer's are in the genes APOE and TOMM40, which both reside on chromosome 19. The job of a properly functioning APOE gene is to provide the instructions for coding the apolipoprotein E protein. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, this protein is then used to combine lipids in the body to create lipoproteins.
The protein that is coded by the gene TOMM40 is an important part of transporting protein precursors into the mitochondria. The majority of these genes, specifically the APOE and TOMM40, are coded in cells and tissues in the nervous system. Because Alzheimer's is a disease that impacts the brain, it makes sense that the genetic variations altering these genes are mostly found in the nervous system.
While we will be testing for genetic variations in all of the genes we previously stated, we'll specifically be searching for dangerous genetic variants in APOE and TOMM40 with our genetic test. The risky genetic variation of APOE is known as E4. We have found that having this specific genetic variation of the APOE gene is directly related to an increase in the chance of developing late-onset Alzheimer's disease. The other variations of this gene include E2, a rare and protective against Alzheimer's disease variation, and E3, the most common and neutral variant. When one has the E4 genetic variation, the gene's proteins can begin to clump together in the brain.
Although having this variation does increase the likelihood of developing Alzheimer's, it is important to remember when reviewing the test result that not everyone who has Alzheimer's has this variant, and not everyone that has this gene variation will develop this trait. TOMM40 is another common gene in which its genetic variation is linked to an increased risk in late-onset Alzheimer's disease.
When one has the risky or dangerous variant of TOMM40, their ability to remember basic facts or statements is significantly lower than someone without it. Even if someone has the E3 variant of APOE, the genetic variation that does not increase one's chance of developing Alzheimer's, he or she can still develop it if the dangerous genetic variation of TOMM40 is present. APOE and TOMM40 genes with dangerous genetic variations are the most reliable predictors of genetic risk for Alzheimer's.
With your DNA sample, we are able to let you know if you are at risk of developing Alzheimer's. If you are related to someone or many people who have been diagnosed with this disease, it is important that you get tested. The more family members that have this disease, the more likely you are to develop it. For example, if your test comes back positive for the APOE4 variant, you will know that you have an increased chance of developing Alzheimer's.
With this information, you can begin to make preparations and attempt to prevent and slow down its progression through adopting healthier lifestyle choices. Despite this, our test does have some limitations. For example, if you were to have the APOE4 genetic variation, which is an indicator that you could develop Alzheimer's at an increased rate, it is also an indicator of high cholesterol. So while you have increased chance of developing Alzheimer's, you may also have high cholesterol. This is a current gap in our understanding of this gene.
Another limitation could be genetic discrimination. If your test result came back stating that you have genes with genetic variation that increase your chance of developing Alzheimer's. You would be treated differently or unfairly by your family members, friends, and employers, even though there is a chance that you will not develop this trait.
With all this information in mind, there are several considerations to be made regarding ethical choices and warnings. For example, a positive result in the test may result in need of in-home assistance or medical staff. Also, if you do not want to find out or be traumatized by the results, do not take this test. There are no ways to directly cure or prevent the onset of Alzheimer's, but to just be aware of what will happen. Discrimination during an employment or other opportunities may be an issue if the positive results of the test are made known as well. Since Alzheimer's is a genetic trait, if one tests positive, they may decide against having their own children so that they do not risk passing down the trait.
To sign up for this test, call 555-TEST now. Remember to call before you forget.